Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. I'm your host, Preacher Moss. I hope you're having a fabulous Monday. As you know, we like to do Mo Better Mondays big, if you will. So I decided I was going to do something for Black History Month. And I decided I was going to do a little something we normally don't see. I'm actually going to celebrate one of my musical heroes. So if you want to know who that person is behind me, brothers and sisters, this is John Coltrane. And I have a history of Coltrane. In fact, I basically named my comedy special behind his epic album, Love Supreme, except I call mine Love Supreme and Anatomy of Gratitude. Now, I can sit here and tell you a bunch of things about Coltrane, and I will tell you a bunch of things about Coltrane, but I'm going, and hopefully, in this expression, in this dialogue, in this conversation I'm having with you, what I really hope to do is connect you with the person of John Coltrane, the music of John Coltrane, and why he's important and why we should celebrate him. Let me say it again: why he's important, why we should celebrate him. We did a talk about outliers. John Coltrane is one of my musical outliers, and I'll explain that as well. But before we get too wrapped up into it, I want to make sure that I am acknowledging people who are coming on the show for the first time. If it's your first time on the Shout Out Show, you pick a heck of a time to come because I'm going to give you some knowledge. I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to share something about this artist that really connects with me. So, in sharing about this artist, I'm going to share about myself. And we're going to talk about some things and celebrate. I really think, there's music out here. But there's a spiritual side of this music. So before I get into that, let me welcome anybody who's coming on the show for the first time. Let me be brief. Well, number one, we're glad that you came to spend your time with us. Number two, don't be shy. Get in the comment section. Express yourself. I love to give shout outs for anybody who's coming on the show. That's what makes us unique in some regards. Number three, if you don't mind, click the subscribe button, click the notification button. If you like the show, click the like button. Or, let's go old school. If you like the show, tell somebody, come see the show, come hang out. You're amongst family at this point in time. At the end of this diatribe that I'm giving right now, you're amongst family. So what I'm going to tell you is you are part of a very, very eclectic group of people, personalities, intellect, spiritual combinations of folks. And the best part about it is you're part of a community. I fashioned this thing, but more so the people came on and people I'll be introducing momentarily. They're the stars of the show. I'm talking about things, but they are the stars of the show. It's rare that, we have the type of people I get to deal with who shape so much, who have a lot to do with my own personal identity in terms of a comedian, as a Muslim, as a brother, all these aspects, and I celebrate them. So this show really is for, this show is really for them. Can I say that? I think this show is really for the people who support the Shout Out Show. Not so much Preacher Moss, but they support the Shout Out Show. Okay, so I've rambled a little bit. Please let me introduce my stars in the building. First off, there's Sister Ree. Sister Ree is a beautiful sister. Her and her husband Derek and her son Juwan are family to me, and they always check on me, make sure I'm doing okay. I joke about her being the craft services person because she always makes sure that I have something to eat, or at least checks to make sure I'm doing okay, and that's important. So if I haven't said it recently, Sister Ree, I appreciate you and thank you so much for not only the things you do, but reminding me of the humility of how you do it. We got another star in the building here, one of my comedy brothers. I got to get to him. Permissible Laughter. This is Sultana Whitfield, who's the consultant producer of the Shout Out Show. Sultana, this is sort of a show about you because I recognize that creative spark in you, and I kind of wanted to do this show. And I see LA is on here, so I got to talk about Train because LA knows we've had conversations about Train. We actually talked about Love Supreme as a comedy concept before we ever did it. Before I was ever blessed to do it, we talked about that and my engagement with jazz. But engagement in jazz, but I have different levels. So, Sultana, thank you so much for coming on the show. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Altaf, my main man from Toronto. God bless you, man. Thank you for coming down. You come down, you don't take a plane, you don't take a car, you don't have to have a passport. You just show up on time every day, brother. You know, you better stop hanging out with Nation of Islam brothers because you are on time every day. And my main man, L.A. Hardy, comedian extraordinaire. Check him out on his show. Gosh, it's a debate show, meaningless debate, and it's on. I think it's on Mondays. Is it on Mondays, LA? Let me know, because I need to hype it. I've talked about it before, but you should check it out. LA is a heck of a comedian as well. Great friend, great brother, as well as being a good comedian. When I say I've known LA easily 20 years, I would not be being facetious. My only knock against him is he's from Cleveland. No, I'm just kidding. Love you, brother. A lot of good things come out of Cleveland, including you and your family. So, big shot. And I did see your daughter with the modeling thing, and tell her I said congratulations with that as well. And Sister Ika, who's joining us all the way from Indonesia, Depok, Indonesia, outside of Jakarta. Thank you so much, Sister. I know you're just getting up and finishing your prayers. Thank you for tuning in with us for this half hour. So, let me get to the topic at hand, which is John Coltrane. Now, a lot of people listen to a lot of music. You know, if you appreciated the Marvin Gayes, if you appreciated the Curtis Mayfield, if you appreciated Prince, if you appreciated Michael Jackson, if you appreciated Barry Manilow, if you appreciated Miles Davis, if you appreciate people who have a certain aesthetic of music, 9 times out of 10, they have some type of relationship with the man behind me. That's John Coltrane, born in 1922 in Hamlet, North Carolina. It's interesting because his story is a very perilous journey whereby he finds his peace in music. You know, he's finding his peace in music. And we have the Harriet Tubman from the Financial Freedom up here. What's going on, Sister Kate? And let me get everybody. I keep putting this up here, and I want you to check it out. That's our sponsor for today is BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Call 1-800-679-3175. I'll be giving a plug for that later. And I also want to give a shout out to my main man, Ahmed Shahid. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother, how you doing, man? Welcome back to the show. See how this is like a good restaurant. You know, I'm trying to fashion a good restaurant where the food is good and the people come back for the food. And if you're not coming back for food, you're bringing food. How about that? That makes it a potluck. So this whole idea of remembering Train is, you know, born in 1922 in the South, Hamlet, North Carolina. He goes through a phenomenon whereby his father, grandmother, and grandmother all pass in a span of several months. So he winds up being raised by his mother and a cousin. And they wind up coming to Philadelphia, and to get out of going into the Army, he enlisted in the Navy. He was a talented musician by then. His mother bought him his first alto saxophone, I think it was about 1946 or something like that. But he was already a music savant. Now let me tell you about being a music savant. I'm not one. That's number one. What I know is being a music savant doesn't mean that you come out of the space playing the most beautiful music. You come out of the space with a mindset that allows you to see music and play it and compose it a certain way. What's up, Jabril? That's right. Born in Hamlet. I know you know, brother. Big shout out to Jabril. Jabril's like an activist, man. My only knock with Jabril knows every famous musician that comes to North Carolina, and he takes a picture to rub it in your face. You know, this is the only person he doesn't have a picture with, John Coltrane. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Jay. Appreciate you. But Coltrane comes to Philadelphia. There's several things going on in Philadelphia at this time. One, you have the Nation of Islam that's dealing with, spreading. That would be Muhammad's Mosque number 12 with They have several ministers. Minister Jeremiah Shabazz, and of course, Minister Malcolm X was down there. And of course, at the time, Minister Wallace D. Muhammad was down there. But he falls into this musicals place, and he tours with people like King Koloff, and he winds up playing with Jimmy Heath, who's an incredible player. Now, he played in the Navy, but I've listened to some of his stuff when he first came out of the Navy. Let me tell you something. I love Train, but it's freaking horrible. It's bad. It's borderline like, damn, that's what it felt like. But even through that, there's some pieces and parts of it that are absolutely brilliant. And so he goes through this metamorphosis, and we begin to hear. Well, I'm not during this time, but he begins to hear and establishes his own style, and he becomes clearer. Now, the thing about Train at this time is he's playing very conventional stuff. He goes through a metamorphosis of several people who affect his playing. Okay, you had the greats like Coleman Hawkins and Coleman Hawkins. You had Prez. You had Bean. You had all these great players at the time, but they played bebop and hard bop. In that time, he winds up connecting with who? None other than Miles Davis. Now, Miles Davis is really, really important in his development, because Miles Davis gives him a structure. They had what was called the first great quartet. It ironically breaks up. Why? Because Coltrane develops, sorry, gotta say it, a heroin habit. So he's not able to play to the best of his abilities. And it breaks up. Ironically, I have to check and see if it's true, but they say Miles Davis loved Coltrane so much, he actually introduced him to the soprano saxophone, which is what he's playing right behind me. So he played alto, soprano. Now let me fast forward a little bit. I wanted to be Train. I wanted to be Train. My dad might be watching the show, and he's not gonna lie. Problem is, my first instrument, when you in elementary school, that's back when they had music programs, the instrument I was really, really good at was the violin. Now, let's frame this. I'm a young black man playing the violin in the early 70s. My dad was like, son, you're not going to play that violin because I don't want you to become gay. That was his whole thing. You can call him up right now. He's going to tell him, well, my dad will be like, well, shoot, the boy ain't gay. And the instrument I chose after that was alto sax. Now, alto sax had a history because Charlie Parker Bird played it, and Train played it. Now, what I didn't know, and my father could have known at the time, was there's a progression. Before you learn how to play the saxophone, you learn how to master what? The clarinet. I went straight to violin, the clarinet. Now, it didn't work out. Everybody knows that I didn't want to be a comedian when I was young. I wanted to be a jazz musician. And I realized when I got older why I wanted to be a jazz musician, and it had a lot to do with connecting to the spirit. A lot of the early Muslims, high-profile Muslims in the United States were Muslim, were actually African-American jazz musicians. And what they gave me and a lot of people was the fact that outside of the United States, people had a different perception of African Americans. They loved our culture. They loved our spunk. They loved our approach to life, our aggressive understanding of fighting for what you believe, but they loved our arts. And in loving our arts, brothers and sisters, this thing became much more beautiful. And it made me look a little differently about who we are as a people and who I wanted to be. It was funny when you played band in high school, not in high school, but in junior high school, you played it in elementary school, and the teacher would be like, what's that playing? What are you playing on that saxophone? And I loved it, and I turn around and I go, I'm playing Train. And she's like, who's Train? Because you got to realize I'm like in 5th grade. I'm playing Train. I wasn't playing Train. I was destroying his music, but for a fifth grade guy, I liked it. Now, the development with John Coltrane is something short of this very, very spiritual journey. It's a very spiritual journey. He works with people like um, Ornette Coleman, who emphasizes the confidence in playing freely. Hear what I'm saying? Playing freely. And then he also plays with none other than Thelonious Monk. And Thelonious Monk inspires in him the ability to spread out, to willingly take a saxophone while you're playing it, jump off a cliff, flip 4 or 5 times with the understanding and the faith that you're going to land on your feet. And his style becomes legendary. By 1960 and 1963, he's ready to leave Miles' band. But look at the pieces of work he worked on. Kinda Blue, which is the top-selling jazz album on one of them. The other one, of course, is Love Supreme, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But he did his own, and I also want to speak about how prolific he was. He was a non-stop rehearser. He continually rehearsed. He was a guy that when they finished playing a set at the club at 2, 3 in the morning, he would come home and he wasn't going to the house. He'd go into his garage and continue to practice. It was the pursuit of a particular sound. It's a dogged pursuit. And it's even more so than when I talk about deliberate practice, because what are you practicing for? He was trying to elicit a sound that we couldn't hear. Remember when we talked about talent and genius? Talent is the ability to hit the target no one else could hit. Genius is the ability to hit the target no one else could see. He was hitting targets no one else could see. And that target was so big for him, but nobody else could see it. Miles Davis had to beg him to come back on tour. The last tour they did was over in Europe. And it was a bad tour because he didn't want to be there. But he felt indebted to Miles. Because through Miles, he did kick heroin and things like that. Or kind of kick heroin. I'll get to that in a minute. But he created albums like Ascension. He created albums like Giant Steps. He created albums with Johnny Hartman, the rich baritone Johnny Hartman. He created all these albums, and it leads to this crescendo, brothers and sisters. The story goes, he's in New York City. He's playing a place called the Red Rooster, I believe that's correct. He's playing the Red Rooster. And at this point in time, he's legendary. He's legendary in his status. Like, musicians come to see him. Like, you hear about comedians go to watch Chappelle. It was something like that, except it was bigger in the jazz world. And even more relevant because there was no social media. There was no TV or stuff like that. And he would go, and he was at this place, and the story goes, he was with the band. His band was him, Elvin Jones, McCoy Tyner, and Jimmy Garrison. Jimmy Garrison on bass, McCoy Tyner on piano, Elvin Jones on drums. Now, basically, that quartet is a super group. But he's in the Red Rooster, and what people don't know is he's trying to kick heroin. In this process, something inspires him that he's trying to kick heroin. He's trying to go cold turkey. And everybody's there to see him, but he's playing through this crisis, fighting through this addiction. And people say he played horribly. People say they didn't even know, did he even know notes? Was his aperture correct? Or what was going on with Train is what was saying. But what was happening with Train, and I would like to think not just this idea of trying to kick heroin, trying to go cold turkey and kick heroin, because he had the shakes. He had the Jones. But somewhere in that aspect of kicking heroin was the fact that he was trying to engage and evolve his spiritual self. Let me say it again. He's trying to engage and evolve his spiritual self. And it began to come through the music. It became a scenario whereby kicking heroin gave him a great pathway, a clear pathway to wanting to be with and wanting to please the Creator. And that led us to his epic album, Love Supreme. So why is Love Supreme important to me? I'm going to tell you why it's important to me. In my years before I became Muslim, I had insecurities. I wasn't tall. I wasn't light-skinned. I didn't have good hair. I felt like the time that people paid most attention to me was I was telling jokes. And sometimes that was for attention, but also wanted to get people to deflect the things I was insecure about. It was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went to Marquette University, and I struggled. I struggled because I was young when I went to college. By the time my first semester was over, I was 17 years old. And there I was trying to fit in, whether it was chasing girls, whether it was drinking, underage drinking, whether it was smoking weed. I was with the clique. I was trying to fit in, desperately trying to fit in. And it wasn't working. I was losing myself. And it was a constant battle until I was about 19, 20 years old. And I went downtown. And a guy had an actual vinyl of Love Supreme. And I looked at the vinyl and I said, I've heard about this album. I've heard bits and pieces. My neighbor, Mr. Alexander, and my good brother, Leon Alexander, who played in my comedy special, played drums in my comedy special, used to hear them play Love Supreme. And what happened, by no arrangement of my own, was I began to feel the spirituality of this album. And I played it over and over and over and over. And the sign of really good genius is every time you play something, you hear something differently. Great material, every time you see it, you see it differently. There's a nuance, and you connect nuance, and it's so much above just what the eye is telling you. It's more so what the heart is telling you, and more so what the spirit is growing in you. So much so that when I decided to become Muslim, I took Coltrane's album. I went over to a friend's house. I was supposed to be house sitting. And I did nothing but get a big bucket of chicken and let Coltrane's album play. That's when you had the arm that you could put over it, like, click. And I left it on repeat for hours. And I didn't know this at the time. And it came out and people would dispute it, but I have evidence that it is. I have evidence from the great Dizzy Gillespie that Coltrane was Muslim. And if you ever get the album, it's a humble note from him, a gift to him, a gift to him. And in his liner notes, it's what in Islam we call, he gives a dua. He gives a dua. Now, people want to know, why is the album called Love Supreme? In my comedy special, I tell people, I'm not going to do Love Supreme. I'm going to sing it the way it was supposed. You hear like a love supreme, a love supreme, a love. But in the inner side, in your inner ear, if you will, you hear a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme. And he switches, a love supreme, a love supreme. So I'm watching this special with Dizzy Gillespie. And he said something, and I actually did some research. And it turns out that Coltrane was Muslim when he produced Love Supreme. Love Supreme is one of the, if not best-selling albums, jazz albums ever, because it makes you work. Does that make sense? You may not like it the first time. It makes you develop an understanding, because it's not a straight off you like it. It makes you appreciate it. And we don't have a lot these days. Things that you have to work hard for to appreciate. And so when I'm listening to this album, I'm getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this space where there's no walls, there's no ceiling. You can close your eyes, you can feel totally at peace. And that for me was religion. It was Islam. It was Christianity. It was Buddhism. It was Taoism. It was all these things. But what it was peaceful. That he found this thing during Islam is interesting because they say, and Stan Gelder, who recorded it in Inglewood, New Jersey, says that this is one of the first times that when Train came in with his band, all the parts were written. And they had been rehearsing parts of it, of course, but they came in and listened to. It's not an album. It's an album, but it has suites to it. It doesn't have songs. It has suites. Resolution, acknowledgement, psalms. I mean, each of these suites. I'm like, what kind of album is this? And brothers and sisters, you know what it is. Coltrane was giving us our first dose of jazz music as religious work. Jazz music as religious work. Something that stirs your soul. And I realized how deep it was because at my age, I hadn't heard that before. It was gospel, and that was it. It was gospel, and that was it. There was no Deepak Chopra and nothing. It was gospel, and then what this man did with his horn. And even more so than creating religious work, because that would be applicable to one religion. He created spiritual work. He created a space where guys could lay out in their music and they can think of a oneness with a greater power or whatever religious space. His was Islam. And for it, all of us are better. I'm better. A lot of us are better. You can find other songs other than the Love Supreme album, like Alabama, when he played that after King was murdered, or was it the 4 little girls being bombed? It was after some tragedy. I think it was when the 4 little girls were killed in the church. But Alabama is haunting, brothers and sisters. It is a haunting song. And I would have played some of that for you guys, but you know YouTube would have shut this whole thing down. Shout out to YouTube that's pimping black music that you didn't have anything to do with in the first place. And if it wasn't popular, you wouldn't have anything to do with it anyway. It's just your way of trying to control black people, their image, their spirituality. Okay, back to the program. But let me close on this. And then I'm going to give a short note from my sponsor. Coltrane, when this album came out, did not want the album to be named Love Supreme. The original title of Love Supreme was not Love Supreme. It was Allah Supreme. Allah Supreme. And if you listen to the album, you can hear it. Allah Supreme. Sounds like a Love Supreme. But that's tonally what Train was doing anyway. And I really, 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 really loved the way that it mixed in. I should have queued up what I did for my comedy special. But, you know, I'm not celebrating me. I'm celebrating John Coltrane. Got a note here from Altaf. I used to work at the music store. I only remembered us selling Blue Train. Blue Train was a heck of an album, man. You know who he had on that train? You know who he had on Blue Train, brothers and sisters? He had a young Lee Morgan on that joint. A young Lee Morgan. Look at all the players he played with. Thank you, Mama Son. She says, thank you. Make the live production. Yes. Love Supreme. And maybe we'll play some of it another time, but I'm just happy to be able to discuss this with everybody. So I'm gonna wrap up. I just want to give a quick shout out before we get out, brothers and sisters. And what I want to do is I want to just quickly talk about our sponsor, who has been so gracious, making sure that the program comes on and we're able to put up the content. So during these times, I think it's really important to have a saying called pull the goalie, which is the idea: don't wait until you don't have any options on the action. The earlier you make up your mind, the earlier you have more options, the more options you have. And it's so these days, in terms of finance, in terms of not only generating revenue, but saving revenue. So I have joined forces with BeFinanciallyIndependent.com, and we're trying to raise consciousness, raise financial literacy. And BeFinanciallyIndependent.com is accompanied by Miss Maxine Cade, former attorney Maxine Cade, who has taken time to develop programs to make sure that you have wealth management and you also have financial literacy. You see, you can't really have wealth management without financial literacy. You got to have a balance. So what I'd like you to do, if you get a chance, go to check out her website. Like I said, she's known as the Harriet Tubman of financial freedom. She's trying to take people out of slavery of debt and take to financial freedom. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com or call 1-800-679-3175. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com or call 1-800-679-3175. So I'm going to take us out of here, and I like to do it a little bit differently, I would like not for me to take you out. I would like that maybe you take a minute and you listen to the first suite of Love Supreme. Just listen to the first suite. Now, some of you are going to go, what the heck is this? I understand. I was the same way. But it's an invitation. It is musical dawah. It is musical taqwa. And it's musical tawakkul. So dawah, invitation, taqwa, fear of Allah, and tawakkul, reliance on Allah. And the connection in music. Think of the music that's out there now. What kind of music are you really, really hearing that ties you into gratitude to your creator? Not only that, I'm able to take this subset of skills and raise the consciousness of people, because that's what this album did. It raised the consciousness of people. Like Kind of Blue with Miles Davis was an amazing album, beautiful. It was effortless. It was flawless, but it didn't raise the spirits of people. It didn't make you think about oneness with creation, my brother or my sister down here. So I'm going to tell everybody, if you get a chance, please check that out. I am not lying, brothers and sisters. I mean, it is a heck of an album, even now. So listen, that's my show today. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for being patient with me. I apologize for not having his music up. It is a funny story. I was working with a famous musician. His name is Sonny Rollins. And Sonny Rollins is known for these great stories. And so he was telling these stories about all these guys he blew away off the stage. And he goes, yeah, this guy came from Philadelphia. He came up here, had rolled over shoes. It looked like he had slept in his pants. And I'm laughing. He goes, that guy came out here and he played a little something, and he was all right. He said, but I got up there, I cut him every which way on Sunday, and I'm laughing. He said, I didn't see him for 5 years, and he came back to New York. He said, he was a bad man. I said, well, who's that guy you cut? And the guy said, John Coltrane. He says, and don't ever forget, he said, people are special, and then there are people who are genius. That's our show today. You guys have been amazing. Take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If it's Allah will, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarifa. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.